Hey there, it's Mark from MENWHOBULLET. Thanks so much for checking out today's video where we're going to be creating a really cool circular stamp pattern using the brand new fall stamps from Archer and Olive. Now in the past, I've created different stamp patterns using Archer and Olive stamps before. I created this really cool one that had the florals from their spring collection. I also used some of the items from the Celestial stamp collection to create this one. And so today I thought that I would use the fall and the familiars, which also has some Halloween-esque type icons inside of here, to create another version of this today. If you'd like to pick up any of the stamps from Archer and Olive, if you didn't know that I am an affiliate and I can get you extra money off those stamps, go to archerandolive.com and you can use my discount code MENWHOBULLET10. I'll also link all of that in the descriptions below so you can get right to it. Now, the other thing that I'm going to be using today are some tools from Moxie Dory. So Moxie Dory, who is owned by Amy and Chris, they sent over some really cool fun stuff. There's a really cool journal ruler here to create your grid spacing if you want. They also sent over some other like fun templates, but they also sent over these two protractor rulers, which I'm going to use to create our circular shapes, which then we're going to use the stamps on today. So let's go ahead and get into it. We'll create our grid that we're going to be using, and then we're going to have some fun with some stamps. All right, so here's everything we're going to need to get started with this print today. The first thing I have here is just a large piece of paper. It can be any type of paper that you have, but we're going to create at least an 8x8 square to create this inside of today. So I have a piece that's almost cut to that. We're gonna trim it down just a little bit. You're also going to need a ruler, just a straight ruler. That's how we'll create our first kind of cross hatching to create our even squares. Then you're going to need some type of a protractor or some type of a circular ruler. I'm going to be using this really cool stuff that was sent over from Moxie Dory. So Amy and Chris have a really cool Instagram and a really cool shop where they have all kinds of things for planning for beginners and even for advanced. One of those, or really two of those, being these really cool circular compass pieces. They're made out of plastic and you can use them right on side of your paper. So we're going to be using these today to set up our larger space around our circle that we're going to create our pattern on. The other thing that you're going to need is going to be some type of ink. I'll be using the VersaFine ink today. It's just a personal favorite of mine. You're also going to need a pencil or pencils. That's how we're going to lay out our grid, and then we'll erase those later on afterwards. And then the last thing that you're going to need, but the most important thing, are going to be your stamps. So both of these are from the brand new fall collection from Archer and Olive. This is Familiars. I love this one so much because it has some really cool items in here, including some Halloween type things, our moths, a cat in a hat, not the cat in a hat, but a cat with a hat on, as well as some spooky owls and bats and things like that. And that's a part of Familiars. And then there's also the Fall Nature stamp collection that they have. And I like this one because this has some other really cool fall things like pumpkins and branches and leaves that we're also going to use in conjunction with everything else today. You can buy these over on archerandolive.com and you can use my discount code, which is MENWHOBULLET10, and that'll save you 10% off your total purchase when you buy online. So the first thing that we're going to do here is we're going to grid out our page here. And the first thing that I'm going to do is set up an 8x8 square for us to do that on. So I need to do this in two different ways. The first one is going to be getting my page kind of lined up because this paper is a little bit longer than 8x8. So what I want to do first is I actually am going to just go up an inch here, and then I'll count up 8 inches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 will be here. I'm going to do that on the other side as well from the bottom, and that way I know that I am as square as I potentially can be. And then I need to do the same thing over here. So once I have those two lines here, I'm going to go ahead and just draw a straight line across. And then I want to get the same spacing across here as well. So 1 inch, and then we'll get 8. And then we'll go ahead and connect these two here. Make sure that when you're drawing your lines that you are just doing a nice light line because you are going to erase these afterwards. Once you have your square here, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the edges and create this cross spot. That is going to show me where the middle of my paper is. And that's going to be really important for when we use the circle compass to draw our radiating lines out. I also like to do this in the centers as well, just to give myself as much space as possible. So since I made this as a 8x8 square, I can just draw a line at 4 inches all the way around. You don't have to draw this many lines, but for myself, honestly, I like to give myself as much room as possible because sometimes it can get a little confusing, but once we get into our pattern, we'll be okay. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to use our circle compass here from Moxie Dory. So what's cool with this is it really can be any size that you want it to be. It can get pretty big, but it comes along with this. It shows you how to line things up here, and that's what we're going to do. So we are going to just use actually another pencil in here, just right here in the center. I'm going to hold on with one pencil. You can also use a paper clip if you want. I'm just going to put that inside of here. And then I'm just going to pick one of these lines, and then I'm just going to draw a real quick circle all the way around. And I'm just going to do a handful of those. I am losing them as I'm going around. I'm sure there's probably a better way for me to do this, but for some reason, as I'm going around my page here, I'm losing the hole that I was in. There we go. All right, that looks pretty good there. Minus my own little mistakes inside of here. So now that I have all of these pieces, what I like to do next is I like to pick out the centerpiece for this. And for this one, I'm going to use the pumpkin as my centerpiece right here, and then I'll do all of the other items around this radial pattern. Because these are acrylic stamps here, the rubber acrylic stamps, you do need to have an acrylic block to attach these to. Rubber stamps are my absolute favorite. They're super functional, but they don't come with blocks. They come as those sheets, so you just need that there. So once I have this stuck on here, what I like to do is I like to take my stamp and I'm going to get my ink onto that stamp. You can do this in 2 different ways. You can either press your ink right on here, or probably a better way of what I've been told over time is to take your ink to your stamp. I'm going to lay that relatively right in the center here. Press that down. Now this is textured paper, so I don't know that I'm going to get the perfect print all the way around, but for the most part, it's going to work out well for me. All right, once I'm done, I always put it back. Otherwise, I'm going to totally forget about it, and then it's just going to be a mess. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to start to pick out some of my larger elements that are going to go around here. So because this is a Halloween themed one, I'm actually going to go with this cauldron here. I really love the way that this looks. And what I'm going to do for my cauldrons is I'm actually going to start them on this line that is going vertical, and I'm going to put them top and bottom and left and right. So you can turn your paper if you want, which is what I've always done, just to make sure that you're keeping things centered, or just turn yourself as you're going around. We're going to line that up on our first line here. I'm going to press that down. I like to turn my paper. That way I make sure it's always going the same way. All right, looking cool. So we have our pumpkin, and then we have our 4 cauldrons going around. I'm going to be using stamps from both of these sets just because I want to get the really cool feeling from both of them. And as always, not everything comes as one set. So along with the cauldrons and some other animals and stuff that I'll do in just a second, I also want to have some branches. I want to have them for 2 reasons. One, they branch out and they look really cool, and they also take up a good amount of space depending on the style that you're going for with your stamps and your art and your patterns. Some people like to keep it small and tight. For me personally, I am just a fan of taking a little bit out. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start on that same inside line, and I'm going to press these down, and I'm going to do them on the diagonals here. All right, so we've got our start of a very cool radial pattern here. So the next thing that I want to do is start to add in some other elements around there. So I think I'm definitely going to be using the bats. What would Halloween be without bats? But I'm not just going to kind of stick them above here where I'm doing. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go with this shape and I'm going to put them coming out of this radial pattern here. So I'm going to go around and I'm going to put them between the cauldron and the tree. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here between the cauldron and the tree. And then those will just start radiating out from our center. For this one specifically, I'm using the long wing of this bat here and just putting it right inside this gap. All right, the next one that I'm going to add here are going to be some leaves. So I love the way that these leaves look. They remind me of the cool leaf that Bonnie always draws. So for these, what I'm going to do is just continue up this line up the side here. So we'll do them in all of the corners. We're going to set that just below this outside radial line here. This is really starting to feel like Halloween is just exploding out from the page. I feel like I have a lot of really big elements here. So the next one that I'm going to use is going to be this little small acorn here. And the way that I'm going to use this is actually going to be over here on this outside radial line. But it's going to only be on, if you're looking at this, on the right-hand side of this leaves because we don't have enough room because of how the bats are here. So we're going to do it always on the right-hand side of the leaves between the other side. I also like this stamp here because it is the outline of the acorn versus it being completely filled in. All right, we'll get our Snow White vibes going. So above everywhere we have the cauldron and the smoke, there's an apple that's on here as well. It's a part of the collection, and that just feels right to me. So right above the smoke, we're gonna put that apple. A little poison apple action happening. Make sure that I turn that the right way. And now what I like to do is just create or have some type of stamp that's just going to fill in those spaces really nicely. So we have our branches, we have our kind of leaves, and then one thing I want to do in here is they have like this cool, I don't really know what type of plant it is. As a planty person, you would think I would know, but it's kind of like, it kind of looks like some sticks with berries. Twig and berries is what we're going to put on here. And so for that though, I want to take up as much space as I can. So I'm actually going to do that so it's facing in. And then the stem is going to be a little bit on the outside there. And I'm only going to do that on the left-hand side. So whereas we put the acorn on the right-hand side, this is going to go to the left of everywhere that we had those leaves. So we have them going all the way around. And then the last one we're going to do here is going to be the other sticks or the branches that are from the fall nature one. And I like this because I think it'll look really cool with these branches facing out. And then we're actually going to come in with these branches. And so we're going to do this right above where the acorn is. And we're going to lay that horizontally across that top line. And get some of those reaching fingers of branches coming in. Super fun. All right, so we're going to put away all of our stamps and all of our ink. So the next thing I'm going to do is we're going to erase all of the pencil lines. And then I'm also going to cut this out so we'll have that exact 8x8 square. Let's actually cut it first. Give this ink an extra second to dry. right, so we can trash those extra pieces. And then the last thing we're going to do is erase all of our pencil lines. I absolutely love creating these. They're just so fun and it's so relaxing to just create those patterns and then create those stamps. So hopefully you can make your own at home. Don't forget, you can get the brand new fall stamps from Archer and Olive, archerandolive.com. Use my discount code MENWHOBULLET10 to get 10% off all of that. I also want to thank Amy and Chris from Moxie Dory for sending over all of these goodies. I'm definitely going to be using these more. I just love how easy they are to kind of pick up and use inside of there, and that'll fit perfectly right into the back of my bullet journal as well. So super fun. Thanks again so much for checking out today's video. And if you're making these on your own, make sure to drop a comment below. Let me know how you're liking this. I'll chat with you very soon. See ya.